you much. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, we are really thankful to you that you have extracted time out of your routine for this session. As we have discussed in last couple of sessions, which was regarding the history of Palestine, we have been through kind of a detailed session in those sessions. And at that time, we also have discussed that we will be trying to have a question and answer session with one of our friends who belongs to Palestine from West Bank. Right now, he is spending his life as a refugee. I would say definitely every Palestinian brother who is not residing within Palestine right now, he's kind of a refugee. He was kind enough to accept our invitation. He literally have extended his precious time towards us, and we are really thankful to him. Let me tell you his name. His name is Muhammad Jumma. The rest of the introduction, definitely, he will be giving us at his own now. We'll be handing over the mic to him in few minutes. Till then, I will just be illustrating you the flow of today's session. We will try to, wrap up that session at max within 2 hours, inshallah. The flow will go like this: that in the start we will request our brother Muhammad Juma to have a kind of a brief introduction of himself, like where does he belongs to from Palestine, like where he was raised, and kind of a very short, kind of some kind of thing, whatever he wants to share, followed by a talk. Now the time of the talk, it's totally up to our brother how much time he wants to take, but like we would be requesting if we can extend it to at least 30 minutes, but it's totally up to him. That's something we already have discussed. And it will be followed by a question and answer session. It will be an open-ended question and answer session, but there are few requests I would like to make. The first, the questions to be put up, they should be for a reason. Like they shouldn't be kind of a question for a question. Like the question should be well articulated and well thought. Number two, you can put up your questions in chat box, or you can raise your hands. We can have those questions answered on the fly. Number three, like whatever question you put forward, just try to think that what lesson we can get out of that answer. So this is important, and I would be again requesting Muhammad Juma, like it's not, I know, I can very well understand at times it's not possible to answer all of the questions, but like if there is anything you want to speak up, you may, but if there is something you want to pen or you want to refrain yourself from answering, it's totally up to, we will not be going for it, and we will not push for it. But like again, having said that, I would also request, like this is not an history session, though Muhammad Juma can answer historical questions as well, but like this is not an history session, this is more of a kind of a way forward session, in which I would like you all to ask questions which are more relevant towards the current situation and towards the forward situation. That is something more important to us, because the past thing we already had a very detailed discussions in previous in the last two sessions. So with this very, a brief, I would say, brief, I would be requesting Muhammad Juma. I would be handing over the mic to Muhammad Juma. And first of all, again, Muhammad, thanks a lot. We are really thankful for your kind, acceptance of this invitation, for your time. And I know the pain you are going through these days is something I'm on behalf of everyone here. I would really like to let you know that is something. It's our common pain. It's not something that we are not a part of that one. It's just like that we literally are feeling the same way in which Muslims should feel, and that is the only reason we are here and we are requesting you. But as a Palestinian, definitely we can understand the emotions, like at the early childhood, whatever you have spent in Palestine. That is something you can relate in a way in which we cannot relate, and we are rather, I would say, we are unable to relate ourselves in that way. So I will just be handing it over to you now. So it's up to you, and Juma, please proceed with your introduction, followed by a short talk. Then we will be open the forum for question and answer session. So Muhammad Jumma, Jazakumullah khair.
Okay, wa iyaakum. First of all, assalamu alaikum everybody. I hope everybody doing well, inshallah. Um, I would, I'm forced to say, astaghfirullah. I mean, I'm not doing much. I don't mind actually, you know, talking to you, brothers and sisters, but so it's not a big deal for me to, um, my issue was whether I'm really the right person to talk to you to begin with, not the time, honestly. So, having said that, I want to first introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Jumma. I come from a small town called Silwad. This is in the West Bank. Um, and I'm sure most of you, I guess, realize that there's what they call the 1948 borders and 1967 borders. So, the 1948, in a nutshell, was when they took 80% of the land, and then 1967 when they, you know, incorporated the other 20%. And I say incorporated because it wasn't much of a war. It was just incorporation of the rest of the land. So, I come from that town. It's about give or take 7 to 8 miles to Ramallah. Although if you live there, it would feel like you're living, about 100 miles away at times, and I'll discuss that later on. Um, my parents. Apologies for the background, by the way, noise, because I mean, I'm in my room, but my kids come out in and out of my room. Um, so my parents migrated. Well, my dad migrated Palestine in 1960, looking for a job because at that time there were no jobs in Palestine. He tried Jordan, that didn't work out. He enlisted in the army actually, and then later on he realized that the army is not. Give me a second, please. I'm sorry. Sorry. So my dad realized that the army is not really had no intention to go liberate anything, so he enlisted and moved on to Kuwait. Um, so I was born in Kuwait myself. Um, my the other only the I'm sorry, just a second. Sorry, as I said, please ignore the background noise. Um, so th- so I come from that small town. And so I was saying that I was born in Kuwait. My um my mom, so my dad used to go back and forth to Kuwait, and my mom, when she had the first twins in 1966, that was a year before the war. So the 1967 war was kind of unexpected thing for the Arabs. I mean, the 1948 mandate, they saw it coming and no one did anything. I guess because Arab states and Muslim states were already colonized anyway. I mean, Jordan, Syria, and all the other states were still under the colonizations of Britain, Italy, and France at the time. But 1967, it was it was a hype, but no one really saw this treachery or the treason that happened in 1967. So to say this, the reason I'm saying this is because it was normal for um, at the time some Palestinians who had no money to look for jobs elsewhere. My dad came from a poor family, so they had nothing. I mean, they had to go out and look for. They had no lands. A lot of Palestinians were farmers at the time, so it was okay. Because a lot of them didn't think that they're not returning. So, for example, my dad, he got a job in Kuwait. He was thinking, okay, I'll go there for a few years and I'll come back to my hometown and just live there and work there. So when 1967 happened, my mom actually had to travel to Kuwait and meet up with my dad there. And on the way, she had to actually spend a few days in a cave with the twin kids. Um, and remember, during this time there were no communications, no cell phones. So my dad, for some time, he didn't even know what's happening there with them. So anyway, she met up there, and then they continued to be there until 1990, when the war broke out with Kuwait and Iraq, and some Palestinians, they call this the third Nakba. First Nakba being 1948 and 1967, and some people say they call it, the third Nakba, 1990 war. And that's when we moved to Jordan, and then from there I continued my studies, and then time to go to college. In Jordan does not offer a good variety of colleges for, especially for Palestinians. So I moved to US at the time, and I continued here, and then I stayed here. At some point, I moved to Saudi Arabia to do my, which can be closer to the Middle East. That didn't work out, and this is where I met my friend Shazad Farouk. So this is kind of brief history where I come from. Um, Before I can continue kind of the introduction, I feel like I'm obligated to make a disclaimer here that I'm in no way authority on anything in these topics. Like I love to discuss and I love to talk. To me, I think of this as the Americans, they call it a coffee discussion or a coffee meet. It's like having a discussion with friends over coffee. But I'm no way authority. Yeah, I mean, so this is the first disclaimer. The second disclaimer is that yes, I'm a Palestinian, and I would like to relate this from the lenses of a Palestinian, but I would want to bring your attention that as a Palestinian, I hold a position that may be not shared with a whole lot of Palestinians. Growing up, for example, I remember when PLO was enacted, and of course, you know what PLO, the Palestinian Liberal Organization, Fatah, and I guess it was a group of factions of the Palestinians. Like a lot of Palestinians were hailing that, and I was against it. I was saying this is just a buffer zone to the Israelis. I was telling them that uh, some of you who are in the corporate world would understand this terminology or the analogy. If you're giving a contract to a vendor, and then the vendor has a second contract to another vendor and a third contract. So if the original contract is bad, which is colonialism by the Zionists, the second contract is going to be just as bad or even worse, which is the PLO living under the PLO. So my point is that although I'm going to share my thoughts and my views as a Palestinian, that necessarily mean that this speaks for all Palestinians. So this is a second disclaimer I want to make. Having said that, I stumbled on, I guess, how to go about this. So let me kind of explain how, in many ways, this is happening. You can definitely relate to it, and I in a way, Amr Jazakallah khair says that we cannot maybe. I'm sorry, I see a hand raised by Brother Saad. Is there a question?
Juma, we will take the questions after
No,
your talk.
okay. Yeah, let me make
Yeah.
it clear. So if anything I say is not understandable or something that you want clarification, no, it's okay. I mean, I don't mind someone jumping in for a quick
Okay.
explanation. I understand that
Oh,
there'll be a quick,
Uh,
you know.
Assalamu alaikum. There is no such question at the moment. That is not important at the moment. So I can ask the question later. No
Okay,
problem.
no
You can
problem.
carry
But I
on.
mean, you can
Yeah.
interject if you need to me to explain something that I say that's maybe not not familiar with. Yeah, please stop me at any minute. Okay, so yeah, what I was saying is that yeah, what what I feel is maybe more emotional, more pain to what's happening right now. But I remember going through almost the same set of emotions when Syrians were being killed by Bashar Assad, or by Gaddafi, Libyans by Gaddafi, or Egyptians when they were slaughtered in the square, Tahrir Square, by the Egyptian forces, Sisi. That pain, the agony, almost the same, except that maybe this time is a little bit more, because the nature of the brutality, the brute nature, the very animalistic attack on the Palestinians right now. or the Muslims in Palestine. I would like to refer to them as the Muslims in Palestine. So having said that, yeah, so I do believe that these emotions are definitely somebody I think needs to be on mute. Okay, sorry about that. So let me start by saying that from a Palestinian perspective, one of the first things that Palestinians struggle with is identity when it comes to these crises. So you see us raising the Palestinian flag, which is itself is ironic to me because the Palestinian flag is something was drawn by the colonizers. The Brits, they came and they said, this is a flag for Pakistan, this is a flag, or maybe not Pakistan, Jordan, Palestine, Syria, and they literally drew these Palestines and these borders. So when it comes to the crisis with Israel, we always have this identity crisis where we don't know. Sometimes we invoke this Muslim card, and then one time we invoke this Palestinian card, and one time we invoke the regional card, Arab nationalism card. So it feels like we're speaking different languages at different situations. So if we're speaking to non-Arabs, suddenly the conversation takes an Islamic turn. And then when we're speaking to Arabs, it's an Arab thing, you know. And when it's speaking to Palestinians, it's literally, and within Palestinians, it's sometimes the discussion takes a turn to Hamas versus Fatah. There's another faction which is called the Jabha Sha'biya. So some of you might not be aware of the factions on the ground, but there are a lot of them. Although on the main ones are probably three. Hamas, Fatah, and Jabha Sha'biya. Jabha Sha'biya is basically a communist party. So that we have that issue that we're not clear on which direction to take. But then even Muslims or Palestinians in the West, they also have another crisis where when they discuss the dimensions of this Israeli struggle, the Palestinian struggle, sometimes they discuss it from a United Nations perspective. So 1967 borders, because everybody is so quick to highlight that the UN did not recognize any borders before 1967, as if to say, if the Israelis withdraw from the 1967 borders, then everything is fine, and it's not. But that's the only language that they use to kind of to communicate with the American administration here or the Americans in general. So that's there, and that vagueness and the unclarity is there when it comes to Palestinians and their approach to the topic. To me, things have been always simple. This is an Islamic struggle. Aqsa is what we call in Islam a waqf, which means belong to all Muslims. It doesn't belong to Palestinians, so it belongs to all Muslims. And although part of this struggle is about the land, so there is a Palestinian dimension to it, in a sense that these homeowners and the owners of the lands, they were kicked out, and they have individual right to these lands. It's not just about that, it's about, because you can argue that, okay, we can bring back the refugees and give them back their lands, and still the state will be still a state of Israel, ruling over these lands. So although that right is there, but from a struggle perspective, it's better to highlight the Islamic struggle, not the other dimensions. Now, one thing I wanted to point out before I guess we dig deeper into this is that a lot of people, they say, well, Gaza is an open air prison. Or another thing is, so there are 2 points. They talk about the apartheid state of Israel and then Gaza being an open air prison. So I will comment on the first one. The apartheid state, for example, notion, I tell people as if Israel, if Israel government decided to be nice to all the citizens and give all Palestinian citizenships belonging to Israel, and treated them equally, then all of a sudden we're okay, which is not the case. So I personally don't ever use the apartheid state as a argument against the Israelis or the Zionists. The other notion is that Gaza being an open air prison, which is true, but I'll tell you a personal story. Even the West Bank is the same thing almost, because so what happened in 2007, I took a contract with a company called Wataniya. Wataniya is owned by a company in Kuwait. So I'm by profession, I'm a telecom engineer. So I design, part of my job is I design location of towers for cellular networks. So when I took this contract, they liked me because I was Palestinian, and the same thing, I had an American passport, so I had access to go into West Bank and come back, because the original, again, owner was a Kuwaiti company, but they needed someone who can go and come back. So they liked me. So, and I remember when we first gave them the proposal in Kuwait, they kind of laughed at the proposal of the locations of the towers and all that. So they said, why don't you come to Falasteen, and then we will discuss it more. I didn't understand honestly why, but when I went there, it became clear. And part of it is because of my ignorance. So what happened when Fatah had the Oslo Accords and the establishment of the PLO state. So remember, the 1967 had 20% ownership of the land, and then they incorporated with Israel. So people think that PLO has actually authority over the 20%. It is completely false. Some estimates put the actual authority over maybe 5 to 6%, remaining of the 20%. So you literally have 5 to 6% of the whole Palestine. But even if you, subhanAllah, even if you want to go that route, that defeatist route, you still own 5 to 6%. So what happened? How was that related to my work? So it turns out we wanted to put the towers locations. Mountaintops, most of the strategic mountaintops are no. So the land is zoned over there. They have 3 zoning for the land: A, B, and C. A, you're allowed to build. B, you're allowed to have farms in there. So basically trees and like a small shack to to put stuff in it. C, you're not allowed to do anything with it. This is a strategic zone. So all the valleys are deemed C zoning. Mountaintops, strategic mountaintops are zone C. So if you remove the settlements, you remove all the C zone lands, you're really left with a 5 to 6%. So they were laughing because we were putting towers here and there, not knowing, the actual, zoning rules and all that. So we had to reshuffle all the plan because of that. So if you think, going back, the point was, a lot of Palestinians, they migrate, and the first thing when you talk to them, the young Palestinians, why did you migrate? He'll tell you that it's choking to live there. You can't go. I mentioned earlier that my town is about 7 to 8 miles. So if you had to take a direct route, and this happened to us many times when I used to, we spent a lot of time in Silwad visiting over the years, even when I lived in Saudi Arabia. So you leave Silwad and you go to Ramallah, because Silwad is like a small town, doesn't have a lot of things that you can find in a big city. It sometimes takes you an hour to get there because there will be multiple checkpoints, and sometimes you might never get there. The Israelis will set up a blockade on the road, and they say nobody's going to Ramallah from these towns, and that's it. You're not going. So imagine living in these circumstances where you're bound to the small town. You can't go even 5 miles out. A lot of students who go to school, they literally have to spend an hour and a half to make it to a school that's 10 minutes away from them. And then when they built the wall, that made things even worse for Palestinians, because I remember growing up, we used to take, for example, trips to go into Jaffa, Haifa, to see these parts of our country. And then when they built the wall, you had to you have to look up YouTube, see how humiliating it is to be in line it's really like a prison. They set up these corridors, and these corridors only take one person at a time, and you stay in the line for maybe 2-3 hours to get to that checkpoint. They allow you to go inside the 1948 territory. Even as an American, when I used to go to Sabah, I used to go pray in Aqsa. I would leave 6 a 7 a.m. just so I can make it to Jum'ah, which is at 12:31. So you can imagine. And Aqsa, if there's a direct route, that would be no more than 15-20 minutes. And most of the time, I would spend 3-4 hours just on the wall checkpoint so that I can be allowed in. So Gaza is an open air prison, but West Bank is the same thing. There's no, the living conditions over there maybe a little bit better than the Gazans. But I always say the one thing they have going for them, Gaza, is that they breathe freedom, they breathe izzah, honor. In Palestine, the PLO has successfully tamed the young men. If you see the West Bank right now, the riots and the clashes are limited to certain towns, and there's a reason behind that, because PLO successfully destroyed the economy. And when you destroy the economy, what's going to happen is young men going to have to look for jobs elsewhere. So they can't go much outside Palestine unless they have relatives who can pull them out by means of marriage and citizenship and all that. Or you just have to look for somewhere else. And the alternative is always working inside the colonized territories of 1948. So what happens, they get permits to go work in these territories. So if you have a permit, that's basically your livelihood. So if you participate in any riots or whatever, your name is going to make it to a list, and that permit will be removed. And that's why we notice this time that the movements in the West Bank have been significantly reduced. That's all from the work of PLO for now 10, 20 years on the 1967 lands. These traitors that they call themselves PLO, starting with Yasser Arafat, have successfully tamed the young men. They got them busy with. My late uncle, may Allah have mercy on him, he was part of a council that overseed the town and all that. And year by year, I used to visit him. I always said that the Palestinians, it's only Allah's mercy that kept them busy with the Intifada, with fighting the Israelis. It's whenever this compass gets lost, they start fighting with each other, And he would tell me about, drugs, pandemics, corruption, and a lot of things happening. It is under the nose of the Palestinians. It's 30. I remember there would be like a lot of guys who have guns and ready to fight. When the PLO came, cleaned them all out. So that was systematic. So yeah. This is kind of a picture of how it is to kind of grow up in a West Bank or Gaza Strip. One thing I want to kind of just touch on another point while we're talking about this is that I kind of mentioned at the beginning. To me, the greatest achievement the Israelis have made over the years, there was a writer, a journalist, his name is Gideon Levy, and a lot of you probably know him already. He's a prominent journalist. He's a liberal Israeli. Like my son says, he's kind of a good guy, I guess. But he's a liberal, so he believes in liberal values. So to him, it is okay to have an Israeli state, just to kind of clarify, but he wants the Israeli state to be more fair and more just to the citizens, including the Palestinians. So he was invited to give a talk by the Israeli lobby, and the talk is on YouTube, I think, the whole lecture. But there was an interesting bit about the talk, is that he says Israel had implemented three things successfully. Number one, they played the victims while they were the oppressors. Number two, they believe that they're the chosen people. So anything can do is okay because they're the chosen people, and they were able to convince the citizens that they were the chosen people. Number three, they were successful in showcasing the Palestinians as and dehumanizing the Palestinians, he said. So The first part being sorry, I'm just getting a call. The first part about playing the victim, that came from the Holocaust. Like the Golden, what's her name, Golden de Meir. She has a famous statement where she said, "The Jews can do whatever they want after the Holocaust." So so the third point was dehumanizing the Palestinians, because he says if you view Palestinians as less than humans, then you have no human rights responsibility towards them, which is true. But to me, ultimately, the greatest success for Israelis was to limit the struggle over the years. Hold on, let me just answer my brother just 1 second. Tell him that I'm busy. Give me a second, please. Um, yeah. So to me, the main or the biggest success they had is that they were able to transfer the struggle from that being an Islamic struggle between Muslims and Zionists. At some point, it became between Arabs and Zionists, and then between Palestinians and Zionists, and now literally between some Palestinian factions and Zionists. Now the Israelis, they keep talking about handing Gaza to the PLO. If you're not aware, in 2005, of course, there were elections. 2006, 6, they left. They were pushed out of Gaza, Israelis, and then there were elections, and Hamas won the elections, and there were some fightings between Hamas and Fatah. Hamas ended up taking over and then the people. You cannot find a piece of land where the population supports the leadership as much as you will find Gazans supporting the Hamas. Now, given there are some exceptions, maybe minority, 1-2%, but by whole, and this is evident by the current struggles. I mean, these people literally getting obliterated. They're losing their kids, and they still come out. Maybe you can't understand the videos because in Arabic they're still coming out. And I was telling Shahzad, it's really chilling when you see a mother holding her dead baby or child, saying, it's okay, they can kill us all, we will still back the resistance. So the point is that Israel was very successful in limiting the struggle, again, from the outer circle being Islamic Zionists, and then Arab against versus Zionists, and then Palestinian versus Zionists, and then now Hamas versus. And you might, for you guys, I think this is probably a no-brainer, but you'll be surprised how many people will talk in this logic that I know, or in the media, or that they view this as a Hamas versus Israel, and that's a danger. That's just, to me, I guess, what I would come to that. I always tell people that Israel or Palestine wasn't occupied in 1948. We were all occupied in the demolished of Khilafah in 1916 or 17. We were all the Muslims were basically occupied. When divided, I mean, Sultan Abdul Hamid, may Allah have mercy on him, he may have been the Khalifa of the weakest Khilafah, but even then, with the weakest Khilafah, I tell people it's crazy when people talk about the Ottoman Khilafah as being weak and everything. With the laws that were enacted during the Khilafah of Ottomans, at the weakest point, it had much more integrity and dignity and protection for Muslims than any other existing state right now. So right before he died, he wasn't able to give up a 1 square foot of Palestine to the Zionists, and then after that, everything would happen. So to me, that's, I don't know if this introduction was kind of what was expected, but this is what I kind of had in mind to discuss. The one thing I want to mention, I guess, before we conclude that introduction, is that it is funny how the Ummah went through phases with the Palestinians. I remember my dad used to tell me stories um, during this times of the turbulence of 1967 and 1973. Now, if you don't know much about 1967 war was a preemptive war from Israel. There was an Israeli scholar named Michael Parenti who argued, who had a lecture. He's an old scholar. I think he already passed away, but I listened to one of his lectures one time on the radio, and he was debating another Jewish scholar. And he says that 1967 war was something that Israelis preemptively did for no reason, no apparent reason. The the pre-war preparation was like, oh, the Arabs are gathering together. Jamal Abdel Nasser, is gathering his army to attack us and all that. So they preemptively started striking the airplanes that he had bought from Russia, and they leveled it to the ground within literally 3 hours. So the the, the analysts say the war was over in 3 hours, although officially the war was over in 3 days, but technically it was done in 3 hours. But the point is, that scholar himself says there was a convoy from the CIA that went to the Middle East, and they assured Israel that Jamal Abdel Nasser was not going to fire a bullet on Israel. He's just playing a role, and there's nothing to worry about. And Israel knew that, but they had their eyes on the rest of the land, so they had to build up to the war, and you know, they struck first. The reason I mention this is because my dad used to tell me, Jamal Abdel Nasser, who used the Islamic Brotherhood as a platform to run for presidency, and he won the presidency, and later on he murdered Sayyid Qutb rahmatullah alayhi. When he used to give a speech, my dad used to say there would be nobody in the streets. If you had a radio that can transmit his speech, you would have hundreds of thousands of people just listening to the speech. This guy is one of I think Time magazine put him one of the top influencers in the world, in the top 50 influencers in the world. And it turned out he was a traitor. You know, so it's kind of hard with politics sometimes to, Yasser Arafat. A lot of people think that he's one of the best people in the Palestinian struggle in the modern history. And again, a lot of things coming out about him after he died, showing that he was a traitor. The point from this to say is that there's a lot of views in politics here and there, and a lot of it sometimes you don't know until you later on. But one solid thing remains is that if you look at this from an Islamic perspective, then it shouldn't be hard to distinguish between what's right and what's wrong. So that's, I guess I'll end with that final note. Taking back this to the basic idea of this being Islamic, and if we talk about, I guess I should have mentioned that if this takes this angle, if this discussion takes this route, then the real preparation for this becomes how do we unite the Ummah? Because you cannot expect part of the Ummah to go liberate Palestine. So the real work is then will be towards uniting the Ummah under one idea, one leadership, and then this would be a Muslim versus Zionist discussion or liberation, inshallah. Yeah, so again, I'm sorry if I took longer time, or hopefully this was something that, some of you probably this is nothing, or, repeated information, maybe, so.
No, Juma, Jazakallah khair. Thanks a lot. Definitely, that was kind of an enlightenment, though we had a history session. But the way you put up the things in a perspective, that's more, I would say, making sense out of it. And particularly the narrative you are trying to make, if I believe, if I can, if I've understood you correctly, is that nothing is leading us towards the right path, towards the centralization of the Ummah. Like those scattered forces, scattered work methodologies. They are there, but like in a real sense, like we have been hit hard by, particularly by the traitors, whether it's being Jamal Abdul Nasir, whether it's being Sharif Hussain, whether the the other names in the history which are a part of history now. So but like having said that, definitely there is a long way to go, and that's, I believe, something which is very much important for all of us here. Like if now whatever question we are going to put forward is something which is very important for us, like this point that where you have ended your talk. Now what should be the clear direction moving forward? That's the right way of articulating our questions. So I believe we can open up the forum now, Abdullah. Abdullah bhai.
Yes, it's fine.
Yeah,
So,
okay,
Mr. Abdullah
perfect.
Khalid,
Yeah,
you can unmute
perfect.
your mic.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Abdullah from Rawalpindi, Pakistan. I have a question, one or two main questions for Brother Jumma. First question would be, as we see from the Telegram channel of Hamas Kataib Shahid Izzuddin al-Qassam, we get daily videos and news how things are progressing and how encounters between Israeli defense forces and Hamas are taking place. The main issue was to supply drones, and then we saw drones in Hamas hands. Then we were thinking that Israeli tanks and armored vehicles were the main concern, but those ATGMs which hit properly to those vehicles. Then next thing which was remaining was only the airstrikes which were destroying civilian populations. They are totally unable. IDF is totally unable to resist or push back Hamas. They are actually being killed by Hamas. My first question is that uh, how can you expect that those missile systems or those anti-aircraft systems, those are available to Hezbollah, can be delivered to you? Do you think if that can be provided, then you can tackle their air force too? If on ground situation is available to you, or you have a better understanding of what exactly Hamas needs strategically and militarily to tackle these armies which are entering into Gaza and are being pushed back and are being killed by Hamas, alhamdulillah. That is first question, how to tackle them militarily and strategically as they are trying to enter into Gaza and they are being pushed back. The second question is, what are the expectations from other Muslim countries like Pakistan and Turkey and Iran and Egypt and Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia is mainly the ally of Israel, but other than Saudi, the major countries are there to support and supply weapons. And but what is exact need of Palestinians over this issue, and which is repeated issue? It is coming from all over 1 or 2 centuries, the colonization period. These are mainly two questions. First is what are the exact requirements of militarily and strategically to stop or halt that air attacks from Israeli defense forces? And second is, what are your expectations from the major Muslim countries which have a strong firepower, strong armies, and they can do something if they want to do? Thank you.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. So I'm not a military analyst, but I will comment a couple of things. Number one, what you're seeing right now in this particular round is extraordinary. Why? Because I don't believe Hamas really had that planned out in a way what happened, and that's by their own statement, not from my my mind. Because Hamas released a statement saying what happened when the civilians, some of the freed civilians were killed. By the way, the concept of civilian itself is problematic, because maybe they meant they were not active combatants, enemy combatants at the time of their killing, because all adults in Israel, they go through military training for 2 years and they know how to use weapons and all that. So can they be classified as civilians if they're adults and they're been trained in the military? I don't know. So but the point is, what happened? Hamas tactics, Hamas style is not to go on a full war against Iran, and they're not neither equipped, and nor anybody is willing to equip them to go into a full war against the Israeli army. Their style is that to go capture, kill a few soldiers, capture, and then go through negotiations. Yeah, they're expected to be bombed, but when this came into, so what happened? They went in. They were not expecting no resistance, and when that happened, that created chaos. So a lot of civilians went in, and the killing started, and they ended up killing a lot more than they anticipated. Again, they were expecting, to kill 50, 100 soldiers, capture maybe another number of 50 soldiers, and then go back, get bombed, and then negotiate a hostage deal and be over with. But when this amounted to 1,400 deaths, well, at least that's what they claim. And of course, Israeli propaganda worked beautifully at the time, and then, alhamdulillah, it was reversed. No single baby, there were no sexual rape involved. Even their own newspapers did, reach the conclusion that there were no 40 babies beheaded, or there were no sexual rape incidents at all. But the point is, that amounted into an attack on the state of Israel. And Israel provoked the existential threat. And they used that as an alibi to go after Hamas 100%. And then they use that as an excuse for the brutal way of conducting this war. This is to say that Hamas, again, nobody's going to supply them with aircraft missiles. I don't see that happening personally. Again, I'm not a military analyst. And to think for a second that Iran or Hezbollah is really willing to give heavy equipment to Hamas, I think is an exaggeration, to say the least. Now, how things get to it. So again, there was this analyst whose name is Sami Hamdi. He's a Tunisian brother. So he says that when Sisi took over, it was his job to satisfy his masters. So he really wiped out all he went after, he created a buffer zone. He had to move a lot of Egyptians to create this clean buffer zone. He flooded it with water, destroyed as many tunnels as he could, just to satisfy his masters. But then he realized in 2016-17 that maybe the strategy is not that great for him, because then you're playing all your cards and you become a puppet to your masters, but you have nothing, no bargain power. So there are claims that he allowed some of that work to go on, building the tunnels and delivery of weapons. But I cannot imagine him allowing, heavy machinery to go through to Palestine. And by the way, whatever they're doing right now, this is all built locally in Gaza. The technology supposedly was exported to them by Iran or Hezbollah, but the actual manufacturing is happening in Gaza. So I cannot, again, imagine them building anti-aircraft missiles. Now, as far as what the roles of the other, honestly, they have, at this point, I have never seen in my life such let down from the Arab states, especially the nearby Arab states. I mean, they just had a summit, and all they can do. We're talking about babies right now are getting killed in the hospital. This is unprecedented in modern history. Babies are getting killed in. A Norwegian doctor just released a statement this morning that 3 babies died because they had to take them out of incubators. Two brother doctors and their families were killed in the hospital, not on the streets. They were not mistaken for Hamas. They were killed in the hospital. With the amount again of this monstrosity, and all they coming out and saying this is a green light for Israel to wipe out Hamas. So there's zero expectations from the Arab countries. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, but thank you very much, Uma. I would just like to add one thing, like like we just need to consider, and we need to be considerate that it's not a war only between Israel and Hamas. I would say Hamas is just trying to play a kind of a farz kafaya for all of us. So it's not something that they are only war and we just need to feed them. No, I don't think so. Honestly speaking,
No, it's
we
not. But
all,
what I'm saying, Amr, is that this is what is happening.
exactly,
The Arab countries are bothered by Hamas more than Israel. Let's face it, because
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Hamas
true.
wakes up an idea.
Yeah.
Well, brother, I hope the session was about. I was intending to write a post, reflections on what this war means, and that
Mhm.
itself is a long topic. But
Yeah.
the idea, I was telling Hamas, Shazad, maybe that this whole thing acts like a reset for the whole Muslims in the world. I have
Exactly.
met I have met secular Muslims who abandoned secularism. I mean,
Mm.
you could spend all your life telling people about feminism, about the fakeness of secular values, human rights and women's rights and all that. You can spend generations trying to explain to them this is all nothing but a wolf in a sheep clothing. But then the struggle came and put everybody on display. you know, Now the seculars are not coming out talking about justice, talking about human rights, talking about women's rights, because it's being destroyed right in front of their eyes by their own advocates. I mean, we had Arabs who used to quote France. I mean, one of the most monstrous colonial powers in the history of colonialism, as being the oldest democracy alive. I would love to see somebody right now come out and defend France's position on what's happening right now. You know, so yeah, I agree with you. But what I was saying is that the Arab leaders, they have an interest in this. They want Hamas to be slaughtered. They want Hamas. They want this idea to go away and move on with their lives. You know.
Yeah, true. Juma, I was not, I was just adding on top. I was just trying to reflect my own views towards my brother who has asked that question. I was just trying to add on to your own voice. Like we just need to give it another perspective. That we need to think it from my perspective, not Hamas perspective. That's something that if I just need to put myself into Hamas shoes, and Hamas is me and I'm Hamas. And Hamas does not mean a group of people who are just fighting for the liberty of the Gaza. No, it's not like that. I just need to put myself into the shoes of a thought, and that thought is a kind of a thought of liberation, that I need to liberate myself, my thought process, my inner ideas, myself from that secularization of this whole phenomenon, this whole phenomenon of secularization. I just need to get myself out of that chains. This is something very important for me. Only then I can think it in a bigger perspective. Because when I say that I need to equip Hamas, then simply means that I am trying to put myself out of it. So that was my whole perspective. I just wanted to highlight to that point to my brother who has asked that question. It was not on a kind of a reflection on your thoughts. It was just to I would say to complement your thoughts actually. Yeah.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
Yeah.
Jazakallah
The
khair.
yeah.
Mr. Mirza, you can unmute your mic. Mirza Ali.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Walaikum
Assalamu
assalam.
alaikum, Brother Jumma. Jazakallah khair, brother, for sharing. I just have one question, which is completely different from what we are talking right now. The question is regarding the aid situation right now in Gaza Strip. Actually, we've been hearing about all of the blockades near the Rafah crossing and all of those places. They're not letting any trucks go in. But at the same time, we're seeing like these organizations like Muslim Hands and Islamic Relief, they're sending pictures on Instagram that they're able to spend some sort of money into the Gaza. I just want to understand from your point of view whether how is the situation with the aid like right now? Are
Yeah.
we getting something in there? Are we getting something like, is anything going through money or something? Just give us some of what you have right now. Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Yeah, that's a good question actually, because so up until a few days ago, I was telling people do not actually send money yet, because there is no absolutely official, I would say, channel to deliver anything. But past 2 3 days, things have changed, and more medical supplies are being allowed. The fuel is still not being allowed, but more medical supplies are being allowed into the strip. So there are now, as far as the choice of your organization, I'll leave that up to you. I can't promote anything really, anybody. I don't have much knowledge. I do in the local mosque. They are promoting organization called UHR. Now I know that they exist in Gaza before that struggle, so they know it helps to donate to somebody who's been working with Gaza. So the point is, they opened that on a limited scale. Medical supplies, some food and all that is being allowed in a small scale. So I personally, I chose to donate at this point, but I'm not going to donate all the capacity that I could donate, because this is going to be a long struggle. So I would say, just pace your donations. Give some a little bit now, maybe a month later, and again, and then a month later. So divide your. Don't give it, because if you give them a lot of money right now, they won't be able to use it. They won't be able to channel all that to Gaza. I'm sure a lot of people are eager to send money, but none of this will be used, for example, to rebuilding Gaza, which they would need. And I'm sure that has to be taken care of by other states, like Arab states, whatever. They probably channel some money there. But again, to reiterate, yeah, in the past few days things have changed, so you can start donating money, and some of it will go to medical and food supplies. Guys, just give me a second, please. Sorry, I'm back. I hope this answered your questions, Brother Mirza.
Jazakallah, Mr. Jumma. Farwa Sarfraz, you can unmute your mic.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
Walaikum assalam.
Jazakumullah khairan kathira. The question is about, regardless of the discussion carrying on, it's about Mahmoud Abbasi, the president of Palestinian Authority, because we used to learn about him that he's also the puppet. He does not do anything in the favor of his people, in the favor of Palestinian people. He has his own interests, like the all Muslim leaders in the Arab states and Muslim state. So what's actually is the accurate stance about him, and how he's being his political career, being the one who is actually supporting Israel and who is actually supporting the genocide of his own people?
Oh boy, Mahmoud Abbas is. I usually don't even talk about him, because I tell people he's so irrelevant that no one is mentioning his name during the struggle. Mahmoud Abbas is beyond puppet, honestly, and I can show YouTube clips him speaking, not me accusing him of anything. One of his clips, he says, "If you call a Yahudi kafir, then you are a kafir yourself." One of his clips, he says, "I have nothing to do but to talk, and we are not allowing anybody to, we're not going to allow any Palestinian to have a gun with him." There's just so many clips for him indicting himself. Like, this guy reached a level of treachery that he himself says it. Like right now, one of the latest, unspeakable things. This is all the killings happening, and he's coming out yesterday, I think, or the day before yesterday. He says, "Oh, we're ready to take over Gaza." So somebody said, so basically, the Israelis will deliver on their tanks, and they'll give you the leadership of Gaza. And to you, this is somehow a victory or something you want to mention right now? So yeah, I mean, yeah, he's really at the bottom. I can talk about him for half an hour, but yeah, I mean, he's so but one thing about him is that because he plays it so low, that nobody has any expectations from him. Nobody cares what he says. He's completely irrelevant. But yeah, he's one of the worst. Definitely. You can just look up. You don't need me. Like, you just look up YouTube clips for him, and him indicting himself, and the way he talks about himself, and what makes him especially excuse the word, nasty for the Palestinians. Excuse my word, but is because he's very active in destroying the makeup of the Palestinian culture. Even the makeup, not just like withdrawing weapons and killing the idea of resistance. Like he allows a lot of the women, the Western women rights organizations, and they know what they do to the family structure. For example, the laws of feminism, and for example, he enacted laws that supposedly protect the child, not just 6 months ago in Palestine, in West Bank, whereby a child can choose their own, declare their own religion, their own sex, their own, So he brought this kind of laws into Falasteen. Um, he changed some other, like he introduced some other laws that with the human rights, and that are meant to destroy Aqidah. So he's you know yeah, he's something else.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope that answers.
Okay, Jazakallah, Mr. Jumma. Hadi PK, please unmute your mic.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
No.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Brother Jumma, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Rather, two questions.
Yes, please.
My first question is regarding Hamas. If we look through the eyes of a common Palestinian, is Hamas having local support, or is Hamas acting on its own? Like outside of Palestinian borders, or like I am a Pakistani, there is a confusion that some people think that Hamas is not representing Palestinian people, or either in Gaza Strip or in West Bank. So
Okay.
if we look into the majority of Palestinian, you can say, population, is Hamas having their support? Secondly, there is a notion among people that that Hamas was basically created by Israel to counter PLO. I think so. This argument is a wrong argument, because it looks like PLO is created by Israel, is supported by Israel, and Hamas is countering this. So I think so. You have got understood my both questions. First,
Yes.
is Hamas having the baseline support from all the Palestinians? And secondly, is PLO, you can say, an Israeli tout, or is Hamas an Israeli tout? Thank you.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Actually, it was a very good question. And I remember when I first started, I'm not sure if you were there from the beginning, I said, my opinions do not represent all Palestinians. As a matter of fact, if anything, I'm probably a minority on this. But so when it comes to Hamas, it's an interesting debate. So Hamas itself started as a resistance movement. And in a way, they were forced to take over Gaza. And I don't mean that somebody forced them to take over Gaza, but they didn't want Gaza to be ruled by the defeatist PLO style. Now, why do I mention this? Because when they were a resistance movement, they had a lot more support than when they took over Gaza and they became a political movement. So a lot of the divide between the Palestinians over this particular nuance. Now, some say that they had to do it, and this is better for the Gazans. So when it comes to them as a political movement, what really matters is the support of the Gazans. But the Palestinians, they have indifferent opinions. One of the main issues that causes them to have indifferent opinions is that they're getting support from the Shia. And the Shias have slaughtered our brothers and sisters in Syria. And that's always a pain point. So, for example, about 6 months ago, maybe more, Yahya Sinwar, which is the leader of Hamas, he gave a speech in which he called Syria the land of Bashar, in a way. That was, to me, the statement was insulting, honestly, and I didn't like it. It was insulting to all the Syrians who passed away, who were displaced from their homes, to call it as such. So this is to say that do the people agree in general with the strategy of Hamas as a political movement? No, they don't. Their statements as a political movement and their actions, although Hamas, just for the record, they maintain one fact. They say, we take help from anyone who is willing to help, but nobody is allowed to interfere with our resistance strategy, and they maintain that. So no one can dictate on us when to fight or how to fight. Nobody. So so that's one thing they maintain. Now the other point is that, so just to conclude on the first one, there's a lot of disagreement on Hamas as a political movement, not as a Hamas as a resistance movement. I don't think you'll find a lot of people disagreeing on that, on their actions. They're fighting against there are some defeatist Arabs and Palestinians who don't mind being ruled by the Israelis. I mean, there was a interview by Piers Morgan, the British broadcaster. He interviewed a doctor. To me, he's almost a sellout, because he doesn't mind living side by side by the Israelis. So you have the very minority who don't have a problem living in peace under the colonial Zionism. But for most Palestinians, this is not okay. So as a resistance movement, they have no problem. They don't disagree with it. As a political movement, yes, they can disagree on their strategy and their statements and their positions, stands in politics. That's number one. Number two, as far as being Israeli, this is only the rhetoric of what we call them. To me, I call them the electronic the bugs, or the electronic. They keep spreading this. Rumors have absolutely no basis. Closer to theory, conspiracy theory, and all that. The ground, honestly, is so far beyond, against this theory. I mean, this is madness, honestly, to think that somebody in Hamas is playing cards with Israel so they can come and then slaughter their own people. It's one thing to have one leader as a traitor, but you'd be surprised. All Hamas leaders have lost their kids, lost their sons, lost their mothers, their wives. It's preposterous to think that Hamas was somehow made up. If it was a political movement only, then yeah, we can have that discussion. But these people are mujahideen. They're fighting. They're losing family members. It's there's no, just but by the way, for the record, there's no evidence on this. It's just all hearsay. Somebody will send you a YouTube link with completely false historical information or false accusations. And if you have something like that, send it to me, and I will, I'll specifically answer to these points in the video.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Jumma, I would just like to ask, where do I have read about Hamas? And, but by the way, if you know Azam Tamimi, he has written down a book by the title Hamas, and I believe, I don't know how much expert he is, but he claims to be an expert on Palestinian issues, and that's a complete book he has written down on the topic of Hamas. But I was just more interested, to touch down upon the life history of Sheikh Ahmad Yassin. I believe that's a wonderful autobiography of someone which literally has led and shed his own blood and sweat into his own soil for a kind of a freedom movement, like whether it's being political, a kind of an ideological, and even at the end of the days, when he literally thought that the Israeli cannot be straightened up by just only the ideological or the political resistance. They need a kind of a stick or a kind of an armed resistance. So, but just on another note, the life history of Sheikh Ahmad Yassin is something which is really fascinating, at least to me. So, I would request if you can just shed some light, if you have any reflections on Sheikh Ahmad Yassin, the
Well,
founder of.
I had read about him just like anybody else, but I'm not expert on his lifestyle. But yeah, what I would like to, so maybe that can be discussed later. I can go.
Okay.
But honestly, I don't. I know more, as much as you do. Probably know more than I do about him. But
Okay.
the point I want to elaborate more on that is that you mentioned that his struggles. I can name names right now of Hamas leaders who lost their kids.
Okay.
Ismail Haniyeh, the one who. This is one of the things, by the way, they say, oh, Ismail Haniyeh, he's in Qatar enjoying luxurious lifestyle. This guy lost 2 kids. He was only moved out of Gaza because he's a spokesman. his job is to speak freely, and he wouldn't be able to do that if he's in Gaza. Nizar Rayyan, a professor in in Hadith, moved back to Gaza, although he had a comfortable lifestyle. Moved back to Gaza. He was slaughtered. 11 of his kids, his wives, all in one strike in 2009. So, yeah. So, I mean, I can name names, but so to tell me that this is, an Israeli made-up movement, it's really
Sure, but actually, the only point I want to highlight over here is that Hamas was not that the way we have associating it to be kind of an only armed resistance. No, Hamas was not born to be like this. That Harkatul Muqawimiyya, what do we call it? Harkatul Muqawiyya, right? That's the
Muqawmin,
name.
yes.
Harkatul Muqawiyya, yeah, Al-Islam.
Muqawma.
Yeah, Halqatul Muqawama al-Islam. So that was something which was basically raised just in order to, I believe, enlighten the life of Palestinians, to educate them, to give them political ideology, and to give them the thought process like upon which they need to resist this Zionism. Definitely, the history which I have read, that the Al Qassam Brigade, it was founded in 1992 by it was inspired by the name of Azizuddin Al Qassam. He
Yes,
was a
Azizuddin Qassam, yes.
he was a Syrian scholar. He shifted because it was a French colony, Syria
Yes.
at that time, and then he was pushed back towards this Gaza region. I believe he was settled in Haifa, and it was a British colony at that time. Then he was again martyred by British rulers at that time. It was 1935, and then in 1992, Hamas established the armed wing by the name of Al Qassam. So that was something which we should know, that Hamas was not a kind of an only armed resistance movement right from the start. It was a kind of a political ideological movement right in the start.
Yes,
But with
that's true.
it was shifted towards that side because the leaders have thought that it's gonna bring them no change unless and until they do an armed resistance, basically.
Agree. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, the military faction of it was established later on, and because they realized that unless there's some kind of violent element, then you will never be heard, you'll never be taken seriously, And this is one thing people have to realize. Tariq Suwaidan is a scholar. He's not a scholar. I'm sorry. He's a da'iya. Okay. And so when he did the Palestinian series, which I recommend, honestly, I don't know if they have a translated version of it, but he did the Palestinian series. One thing I like about him, as a da'i, I have my reservations against him, but one thing he's good at is doing research, because he's in management. He has a PhD in management, so when he does something, he does a lot of research about it. One of the things he mentioned,
if you can name him.
Tariq Suwaidan. I'll drop his name in the chat.
Yeah, please, on the chat. Yeah, please.
So he's an activist or da'iya from Kuwait. He has a lot of series and a lot of stuff. So one of them was a series in Falasteen. He has done that maybe 20 years ago. But in the series, he mentions something, when Allah in the Quran supports it with an ayah, that Israelis over the years were hated. Why? It is not because people just hated Israelis or the Jews. It's because they allowed themselves to cheat others, or abuse the economic trade or the relationships with other nations under the pretext that they are the chosen people and they can do whatever they want. Everybody else doesn't matter. Okay? So why I mention this, because to think for a second that Palestinians can come to some kind of a beautiful peace deal with them where everybody can coexist is not possible. That's not literally possible. And that's why they need to start the military arms of Hamas and the Qassam brigades.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Abdullah bhai, over to you.
Yes, Brother Hamza, please unmute your mic.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So basically, today I was discussing the same issue with some Christian guy, and he quoted me this Quran verse that I had also posted in the chat. It's about Surah Ma'idah, verse 21, that this land is promised to Jews. And I think a few verses later, it says In another ayah, it is mentioned that the land is only forbidden for 40 years. So, for example, if someone asks me, anyhow, the discussion went on to different sides. But later on, I was thinking that I don't have its answers. That according to the Quran, that the land is also promised to Jews. So I don't know its answer.
Okay, so he's using I mean, that's fine if that's what if that route he wants to go. That's even the best route for us, but that's the easiest route for me, because if he wants to have Quran as a reference, that's fine. Allah in the Quran says we promised him, and then you fall back. You didn't do your job, so the promise is no longer there. Number one. Number two, Allah says you will become arrogant in this earth. You will become tyrants in this earth twice. And each time we're going to send our ibad, our servants, and they will crush you. So Allah's scholars say that the first time around happened, and Allah sent them. I forgot. I forgot the first incident. So the second incident is when they become tyrants again, and that's when we the believers will go and crush them again. So yeah, I mean, to play that the chosen people card, first of all, you didn't, as a Jewish people, you didn't do that. You kept denying, you kept committing atrocities. You kept you didn't follow the commands, the orders of Allah, and that's why you don't deserve to be in the chosen plan. That's the first argument. Now the second dimension to this is that there's a Tunisian scholar whose whole life spent in studying Hebrew and the Torah, and he started what do you call it, a school in Tunisia, or a center for studies for the Torah. It was the first center ever in the Middle East, or Northern Africa, I guess. So he has a 4-hour podcast, but unfortunately it's in Arabic, on YouTube, where he talks about the history, all documented by references, supported by references. So he says that the idea to have a Jewish state was never meant to be in Palestine. The Zionist, Herzl, he wanted to have a state for the Jews. It doesn't matter where. And it's only when he couldn't secure a land somewhere else in Europe or South America or whatever, so basically he had 3-4 options, and the option that was available at the time was Palestine. So to say that this is because some kind of religious choice or because of some kind of commandments from Allah on this, it's completely the actual facts that happen of historical facts, disprove that. And if he's unaware of his own history, you can look up references and show him that this is nothing to do with the chosen land. This was just where you're allowed to, have your land, So, and by the way, Herzl was not even a religious person. He just wanted to have a state where he can gather the Jews, but he wanted to be a secular state. Okay.
What? Yeah.
Okay,
So,
Jazakallah.
He
Ayaz,
was quoting some Jordanian olim, so that's why. Okay, thank you. It was quoting some Jordanian alim that he's.
What's his name?
Uh,
What's the Jordanian alim?
Let me see.
Because there are guys who are supposed to be alims and they're sellouts. One of them, for example, is there's a guy named Hamza Yusuf. He's actually an American scholar. He was part of the establishment of the Abraham's Accords, which all the other scholars attacked him already, and they said this is a sellout behavior. But there was another guy, his name is Nassim Yusuf. He lives in UAE. He's Jordanian. He's something else. But yeah, if he's quoting some guy who's probably not even, give me his name so I'll tell you. I know him, but I don't know of any alim that would say that. I could be wrong, but I'm not aware of it.
Yeah. No, is Hamza, brother, you can contact me. Like we can have a discussion on that topic.
Yeah,
I
let me
have.
know. Let me know.
Yeah, actually, we can because basically, it's not the time, but like definitely, Quran do address such kind of things. Basically, there are two unconditional, I would say, Jews claims. One is that there is an unconditional; they have the unconditional rights over the land, this Palestinian land. And the second thing is this Abraham convent with Isaac only, like that the way we treat Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, they exactly treated with Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam. They called him to be the Zabiullah. Like though this is the difference basically. So these two things, which Quran definitely refutes these two things. And one of the answers you yourself gave, that that was only 40 years they were out of it. But you need to understand it correctly. For example, in Surah Anbiya, Allah Ta'ala clearly write down that this convent was only with the ibadi as-salihun. وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. That Allah will only, you know, give this land to the ibadiyah salihun, that's the righteous people. And that
Right.
if they were that much righteous, why were they not able to retain their land for thousands and thousands of years? You just need to understand that perspective. Like, if just let me give you a perspective from historical view. Like in around, if you know that Nebuchadnezzar, that was a Babylonian empire, he literally uprooted them, the Bani Israel, from their land thousands of years back. And again, then they went back. They were again uprooted by Titus Rumi in 17 BC. So 2000 years they were out of the land, and they were able to enter it in 19. Okay, let's put this year, from Israeli perspective, 1948. So around 2000 years or 1900 years, they were not there. So if that they were the righteous, I would say, Warasa of this land, how come they were not able to retain it? So even Quran refutes their ideologies. I'm really surprised the scholar who has given you this, verses, but he has not gone through the other verses where Quran gives the reflection. So we
And by
can
the way,
have a
Amr,
discussion.
I forgot to
Yeah,
mention a couple of points.
yeah,
Yeah, I
please.
mean,
Go on.
again, probably it's best probably to get this from a scholar. The answer, you can ignore my answer completely. Just get it from a scholar. But number two, there's a movement called Naturi Karta. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. These are conservative Jews that they say to kind of support your statement here, Amr. They say that we are the Jews. We have committed sins and atrocities that we are not allowed to have authority over any land, not Palestine, not anywhere. So to them, establishment of a state itself is a sin in their creed, in their aqidah. I'll drop the name if you haven't heard of them before. They're based, I think they're headquartered in New York, but they have all over the place. Right now, they are being oppressed by the Jewish forces in Israel because they advocate for the Palestinian right. Of course, they don't advocate for the Muslim right, but the Palestinian right of the land. They say we're not allowed to have any political authority over any land. Once we do, that means this is the destruction of the Jews. Anyways, I'm done with this.
Thank you very much. Yes, Abdullah, please move on.
Yes, Jazakallah, Brother Jumma. And here I would also like to request to all the participants that who are in the room right now, so we can have another separate session, inshallah, on the same question answer, if you guys like it, which will be in Urdu for our Pakistan India participants. So I think there we can discuss more in the detail, inshallah. And I also request you guys, if you haven't still joined that information warfare group, so please do join that one as well, as all the announcements will be there for the future of all this such sessions, inshallah. Okay, Ayaz bhai, you can just unmute your mic.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah, Brother Jumma, for everything, for every answers and your insight to given to us and the time you given to us. Jazakallah khair. Brother, actually, my question is that we are actually struggling to agree with the short-term solutions as well as the long-term solutions. Sometimes we are thinking, okay, well, the economic blockade might be a short-term solution. We can manage this way, or the other way, like we are talking unification of the Ummah is our long-term goals. But again, as we are trying to empathize, and we trying to understand as an Ummah to feeling the pains of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. But I strongly believe that you potentially have the real-time data and more insight, that you can, your opinion as a Muslim, as a Palestinian Muslim, that how you're feeling, that how you see that we as other part of the Muslim Ummah, we all Muslims like around you here sitting, and we are trying to understand the matter. So what do you think, what should be the best for us to according to your opinion, as a short term the solutions of this problem, this issue, and what should, as a Muslim, as an Ummah, a long term plan should be, in my view, and I could just try to start and to do that. So yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. So the short-term answer is really hard to answer, the short-term part, because I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I honestly don't know how helpful it is. Like, I don't want to put down from the demonstrations. A lot of people go to demonstrations. Even my own family participated in demonstrations. I have issues with the demonstrations, but I don't usually discourage anybody from going to the demonstrations, because the framework of the demonstration is the problem. It's not the actual demonstration. But I usually let people do it because two reasons. Number one, it makes them feel like they've done something, which is good, to feel like you're doing something for the cause. Number two, even the resistance itself, the Hamas, they have come out in more than one occasion during the fighting, and they're still coming out and saying that push your governments, to push Israel, and So I guess the available channels wherever you live, I will to raise your voice. I would use that. Here there are multiple channels, demonstrations, calling the state representatives, boycotting. So all these available means and channels I would utilize. Now, as far as the long-term struggle, I guess that's the easiest of the question, of the two parts. As long as you advocate that there is no, in my opinion at least, there will be no peace for the Muslims until they are united under one banner, then we have always, just look at, for example, Pakistan, India. If there was ever a war, God forbid, whatever, between Pakistan and India, it doesn't matter, what is the balance of the powers between them. That should not be viewed as okay, well, it's Pakistan, India. When the Kashmiri Indians were, and they're still being oppressed, my blood was boiling, So as long as we advocate that we are one Muslim Ummah, that this is unnatural, that we're living in conditions that now is unnatural, this have these borders, then I think we're doing the right thing. So as long as this is how you do it is a different story again, and how you go about it, how you advocate it, part of a group or individual, this is something else. We can have that discussion later. But as long as this is a message that you come across, and I think what's happening in Gaza right now is making this argument a lot easier than it was 10 years ago. When I talk to people about Khilafah, about the unity of the Ummah, they talk to me like, hey man, you're from like 1400 years ago time zone. Now everybody feels it. They feel the humiliation that we are getting by the statements of the Arab leaders and the other leaders, the puppets. They feel it. So half of your job is done for you. So alhamdulillah. Anyways, that's shortly my answer for this.
Jazakallah Jumma. Neha, please unmute your mic. Neha Adil.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hope my voice is audible.
Yeah,
yes, you are audible.
Okay. I have a very simple question. My student asked me that although Gaza people love their land, Gaza, and they don't want to leave it.
Sorry,
Neha, your voice is breaking.
Yeah, you're breaking up.
Neha, your voice is
despite
breaking
of
up.
that,
That's
they
a
are
distortion.
moving northward.
Neha, we didn't understood your question.
So why is that? And isn't it? So where will they go? What's the situation?
Neha, you can write down your question, please, because we were unable to understand.
Yeah, your voice is in and out.
Yes.
Sorry.
Muhammad Shafiq, you can ask your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thanks a lot for having such a informative and such a creative session. Thanks a lot to Jumma from Palestine that he is answering the question. I have read in Quran Majid in Surah Jumma where Allah Ta'ala says that أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه.
Yes.
So the mean is that Jewish cannot, what will say, cannot hope or cannot have.
Ask for death, because if they're chosen people, then you should ask for death and meet Allah.
Yeah, they will never ask for death because they have done so bad deeds. So the answer for UAE brother was this was the basic I think answer. And I really want to appreciate Jumma's thoughts that he is thinking, and we have all to think. I don't have any question such like for that I ask, but I want to appreciate Jumma that he is thinking about that. We should have to be under one umbrella. In 1928, when the Khilafah was there, even that was so weak, but the Muslims were strong that time. And now the other party, all countries of Europe and all other countries, they are having umbrella, they are having UN, they are having a point where they can be gathered for their security in future. We are not having any point where we can get together to secure our future. So I really want to appreciate Jumma's thought and the way forward or to live nowadays is the thing that we should have to unite as a Ummah. They are dominating because they are united. So they are doing what they want to do, despite the international rules or war rules or have to kill the child or you can destroy all the place where you want to dominate. And the second thing I really want to discuss that nowadays, yes, it is like that I can take a part or I can play my role by boycotting the Israeli products. But what about the flights? What about the travelings? What about the engines? What about the machines you are utilizing? So these thoughts or these what do you say preachings is also given us to not to be understand that what we are going to do and what we have to do. We are not thinking that we should have to think, and we are not doing that what we have to do because they are telling us that you should boycott these things. You should not sit in the plane because the engine comes from that country or that country. So it will not do anything. It's my opinion. Safwan is strictly rejected this opinion in last session. So I think that the day now and afterward it should be planned and it should be taught, and we should do what we can do. That Islam is not just to say prayers, to ask Allah that please, oh Allah, help the Palestinians, they are killing. And by the way, I have an information that Netanyahu said that 1,405 people have been killed. So we will do kill 10 person per head. So counting is getting close. 11,000 have already been got dead in Palestine. It is about 1,400 and 14,500 number according to the news coming.
It's the
media.
official number is 1,400.
1,405 as media is telling. So 14,500 and OIC has been called yesterday. All Muslim Malik, and they were still saying that we condemn this attack and Latram Patram, something like Latram Patram is
Oh, you mean the
Pakistani language.
Falasteen,
Can
the
you
Kurd
understand?
Falasteen? Okay.
So it will be fine after 14,500 as the predictions are coming. But what the way forward? What should have to do? What we will do? And the thing nowadays, as we are under the command says that a defense could not be defeated by a group, by a militant group. So Hamas cannot defeat it. It's just, I think, it's my opinion. You can reject that, but then a group
Yeah.
cannot defeat a force, a defense force, which have been said by the world that it's the number one defense force of the world. Yes, there is Allah. Allah can destroy even the whole world. That will be done in Qiyamah, at the day of judgment. But we have to we have to
Shafiq, your question is getting longer and longer, but you have to
I
make
am
a
not
point.
I have told that I have not questioned. I am just appreciating Jumma
No,
brother
it's you have
thought.
taken a lot of time, and you should be
I am really sorry. I am really sorry.
precise.
No,
I
no,
am
no, no worries, no worries. Yeah,
I just
no worries, no worries. Yeah, actually, we all are, we all are from the depths of our own hearts and depths of our thoughts. We are really hurt, and like every one of us, we need a kind of a forum in which we can share our feelings. So Shafiq, brother Shafiq, we literally understand, like we really, appreciate your feelings and your thought process. So thank you very much, and we are with you for sure. Like, but definitely, every one of us, we have our own point of view, and we are there to choose it. But the thing, I believe, from your perspective, there is a question for Juma. Let me rephrase it. Like, what to be done from a unification of Ummah perspective? That's something I believe. Like, Shafiq is raising a point. At least he's not asking a question, but the point within lies within his own statements is there. That's something which is very important perspective to be discussed. That the unification of Ummah, the ultimate objective, because to me, the creation of Israel is directly relational towards the downfall of Ottoman Empire. And if we need to reverse the situation,
not
we
and
need
please
to.
sorry. I mean, very sorry for interrupting. It's not the Ottoman Empire. It's the Khalifa.
Yeah, I mean,
Despite the Ottoman Empire, anyone from anywhere.
Amr, Shafiq, can you guys just give me 2 minutes? I'll be right back. Just 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, sure. Please take your time.
Sorry about that.
Shafiq,
Thanks a lot. Thanks a
yeah,
lot.
brother Shafiq, like, in the meantime, when we are waiting for Mr. Juma, let me tell you that when you say Khilafa at that time, yes, Ottoman Empire was being run by Khilafa, not? Isn't it true?
Is it true? But I am not
Yeah.
asking
Then hold on.
nowadays that we
Yeah, exactly.
just
So
a
this is
Khalifa.
exactly my
Yeah.
point. So this is
Or
exactly my
or
point.
not,
I was saying the
if
same.
not a Khalifa, a central point. We should have
Shafiq,
to
if you will allow
start
me
work.
to
Yeah,
speak only, then I will be able to clarify my point, brother.
I am quite now sorry for that. Sorry for
Thank you. So the point exactly, I am on the same lines, whatever you are telling me. If you have just let me complete my sentence, I would have said the same. That this unification of Ummah, that is the only solution to the problem. Like, it all started from the downfall of, or we can say, disintegration of Ummah, and the solution to that problem is again lies within the unification of Ummah. Is it okay now? Is it in line with your thoughts now?
it is. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. So in the meantime that we are waiting for Brother Juma, like, I would, if you allow me, Abdullah bhai, can I ask a question? If you allow me, or if there is someone else you can prioritize, it's up to you. Your
No, it's
prerogative.
fine, because actually still Mr. Juma is not. Mr. Juma is not in the room still.
Sure.
So after Mr.
Please.
Juma he comes, then we can give the mic to Mr. Muhammad Suhail, I think.
But like, if Sister Neha has asked a question, she has written it down. I would request if you can read
yes,
it.
Afan bhai. Yes, Afan bhai, you can just.
Yes, Sister Neha
Sorry,
says.
sorry, I'm back. I'm not sure. Sorry, I was just saying I'm back. Go ahead, continue.
No, Mr. Juma, if you have something to respond, just go ahead. You can respond first.
I know. So the last question I heard from you is that how to go about it. So this is probably can be a whole session of discussion between us. I believe that you can do it on the individual level, but for example, I grew up part of a movement is probably familiar to a lot of you, Hizb Tahrir. Hizb Tahrir does not have a official domain in USA, but one of the biggest things about Hizb Tahrir is that when the first teach you is that to work part of a group is not only logically makes sense, is actually supported by the evidence. And the ayah that they use as evidence is وَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. As that there be a group amongst you that they were called for the good, and a command was good and forbid was evil. So I guess the first thing is whether you think that the discussion whether it should be part of a group or not, that discussion should be had. And then once you decide on that, how you go about telling people about the unity and all that. And again, that's also part of the evidence. To me, as long as the argument is based on the evidence, the argument for or against in the unity of the Ummah, as long as the discussion is based on the evidence, that's the main. I will leave you with that main thought. Because again, discussing that itself is a long discussion. But see, my problem was not that people denied the existence of Khilafah. It was always logical discussions not logical discussions, things from their mind. They'll tell you, oh, Khilafah it's not a feasible solution right now because 1, 2, 3. Or the world order right now does not allow for the establishment of Khilafah, or there's no need for Khilafah because we have a national state and it's doing just fine. We just need to do some adjustments. So these all arguments, they don't stem from evidence or a fiqh perspective. And as long as we can bring it back as Muslims to evidence-based discussion, then I'm okay with that. Even if your understanding of the evidence supports other conclusion. But as long as we have that reference in our discussions, then we can have these discussions. So I think your biggest problem is that, because everybody now, like for example, even like in Pakistan, you guys are having issues with whether it's Imran Khan mentality or the military establishment mentality, or so people always juggle between the existing options. They don't think of the Islamic domain, Islamic dimension as an option. They think, okay, and the same thing in Turkey, for example, it's either Erdogan or the secular establishment. Erdogan itself is a secular, but so they think all of the available options to them as the way to go. They don't think of another dimension, which is what Islam says, or what as long as you can have these discussions, then I think you're doing okay. Whether you do it part of a group individually, I think you should be part of a group, but that's also another point to discuss. But I don't think we have the scope right now to discuss all that.
Yeah, but like, thank you very much, Umar. I believe that's something you shed some light that this Khilafah thing, if we can just try to call it a unification of the Ummah, that's the ultimate solution. Like this is the same point I was trying to raise, that the foundation of Israel, it was laid down on the very note of disintegration of Ummah, and the fall of Israel will again be on the same notes, that the unification of Ummah. So can we take that statement?
What's the statement again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, like the all idea of creation of Israel, or I would say that the practicality of the creation of Israel, it all started with the purposefully disintegrating the Ummah.
Yes.
And if we need to reverse the situation, it will be again the same path. The
Yeah, I agree.
unification of Ummah will lead towards the destruction of Israel and those evil forces.
100%.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, like we can clearly say that whatever in individual capacity we are trying to do, or a mission we are trying to achieve, but as an ultimate objective, ultimate purpose of life and articulation of my thought process, it should be on a very it should be very clearly focused towards this unification of Ummah thing, on this re-establishment of Khilafah, because that is something which always have given us the right and righteous solution to our problems, and was not only a source of a source of a solution, but it was also a kind of a dignity that we have earned throughout the historically, I would say, last 1400 years. That was the same historical dignity which Muslims had in their last 1400 years. And if you want to retain the same dignity, we will not be able to achieve it unless and until we go and follow the same thought process, whatever has been injected towards us by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the methodologies, whatever the Sahaba and the companions and Tabi'in and Taba Tabi'in they have followed too. So I believe that's the very clear statement for all of us. We can have this thing and a clear, like at least we need to be very much clear in our thought process and in our thinking, right?
Exactly.
Agreed?
Yes, agree, 100%.
Perfect. Yeah, Abdullah bhai, I believe we are having only 10 minutes now. We just need to wrap it up at 11 o'clock. So if you can just try to go for the
Let
last.
me.
Yes.
There's just some small questions that I probably should answer quick. Like Sister Neha.
Yeah,
Sister Neha.
there's a question from Sister Neha that uh, despite Gaza people don't want to leave their homes, they love their land. So my question is, why are they evacuating their homes and carrying out to the Nukba, moving to the south of Gaza? Where will
Okay.
they go? I have asked this question and I had literally no answer.
Okay. So there is a proposal. There's a lot of controversy on this proposal because Israel is not they're trying to show, they're trying to test the water. So the Americans, along with their puppets, they're categorically refusing this proposal, which is to push the Gazans to the Sinai Desert. There was a leaked document that showed that this proposal being a serious proposal within the ranks of the Israeli military and the government, that was leaked like a week after the war. Basically, a plan to migrate them to the Sinai Desert. And Americans and their puppets, again, they're categorically against it. So this is unlikely scenario. Now, to answer the question, the northern part of Gaza right now, if you look at the operations right now, Israel is focused on the northern part, which is called the city of Gaza, basically the capital of the Gaza Strip. They want to encircle the Gaza Strip, and they want to have their basically time to go after Hamas, because they believe that the most of the leaders and the tunnel and the operations of Hamas, the strength, the bulk of the operations of Hamas is in the northern region. So they asked the people to go move south, not to Egypt, not to confuse those two things. Right now, they asked the people of the Gazans to move south of the strip. So that the estimates now put about 1.6 million have moved. Inshallah, they will never get to do it, but I guess to declare their military objective of killing Hamas or destroying Hamas or dismantling Hamas. And then they will have to, move them back to the northern region, but that won't be probably for another month, because all these homes are destroyed. There's nothing to go back to. But I don't think the plan is to push them to Egypt. Maybe they'll set up temporary concentration camps around the Sinai Desert until some rebuilding and whatever that to be seen, yani. But I just want to answer that, if moving south to Gaza is just a temporary solution to move away from the heavy bombardments and the military operation in the northern Gaza.
Shall I take another written question?
Yeah, I mean, okay. So my other question, views about Jews actually wanting to a complete occupy of the land of Egypt. I have
Yeah.
never heard of that. I have heard that Jews they claim their state up to the river, which means up to the Iraqi river. So from Palestine, through Jordan unto the Iraqi, what do you call this, Euphrates river. But I've never heard of Jews wanting to claim the state into Egypt. So that's new to me. At least I've never heard of it.
Isn't it about their flag? Because their upper line is blue and the lower line is blue, so they have they have this as a symbol that they will go from Nile to Farat.
No, it's from river to river. So from the Jordanian River to
Yeah.
the Euphrates River, not to the Nile. From the Jordan River, which they already have pretty much, all the way to the Euphrates River. But I never heard anything about Egypt, honestly.
Okay. So,
Jazakallah.
Abdullah
So yeah,
bhai,
we are having 2 hands raised. It came 3 now. So Suhail,
okay,
just unmute your mic and
let's make it last 3 questions. Okay.
yeah, these are the
Thank you
last
so
3
much. Assalamu
questions.
alaikum wa rahmatullah. Brother
Alaikum
Jumma,
assalam.
I just want to ask that what do you see the next in this? Do you expect some ceasefire in near future or not? Or if it continues, then what do you think that for how long will it be continue? Thank you.
Boy, this is one of the most frustrating things to discuss, honestly, because listen, like to me, honestly, like every day I wake up and I'm glued to the news, trying to understand, make sense of it, and this is part of why, when if you go back, I said that Hamas was never intentional to do such damage. They never expected to do such damage. What's happening right now is even the Israelis themselves don't have a clear strategy. And the Americans themselves said that many times, that there's no clear exit strategy. The Europeans are now exerting a little bit more pressure on Israel because, again, they're not seeing a clear strategy. I personally think that this is going to be for the long haul. Although I expect that the frequency of the airstrikes to drop, it's already dropped a little bit because now they're focusing me on the northern region, and the northern region right now is becoming empty areas except for the fighters. But this is going to be for the long haul. I don't think Israel would stop until they have significantly achieved some major military objective, because their dignity and their integrity was hurt so bad on October 7, alhamdulillah. But yeah, having said that, I think their declared objective is to at least incapacitate Hamas or dismantle Hamas. They have to achieve a big part of that, at least. Unless something is fetched up that would be an acceptable exit strategy, where Israel doesn't come out looking like its nose has been, wiped in the floor with, right now, if Israel stops right now and they do a hostage deal, they're still gonna look like internationally that they're, been beat. So, but if somehow there's a scheme that being thought of by the Americans along with the Israelis or maybe the Arabs, where they can stop the ceasefire and then declare ceasefire, which is, to me, so far it's not looking like it's gonna happen. The pressure is mounting up. I mean, how much killing is gonna take? How many war crimes is gonna be committed before anything? So it sounds to me like they will probably lower the rate of their war crime committing, I guess, but they will continue with this. So this is in for a long, probably fight, maybe months and maybe a year, or Allah knows. But again, I'm not a military analyst, but I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and no one seems to have a clear opinion. I've been reading a whole lot of news outlets on this, and this time is different. That's all I can say. We'll hope for the best, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Mr. Jumma.
Abdullah, if you
Iman?
can just quickly wrap it up, please, with quick, questions and kindly.
Yes. So It were last 3 questions only. So Iman, can you just unmute and ask a quick question, please?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Brother Juma, I have a question. In your introduction, you have used the word Zionists, not the Jews. So I want to know your view over the confusion that are the Zionists different from the Jews, or are they the same one?
Absolutely not the
This is
same.
my first question.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead. I thought you finished.
Okay. And the second question is, what is the current situation in the West Bank right now, as you are from the West Bank?
So,
Jazakallah.
okay, well, yeah. Zionist is a political movement. Has nothing to do. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned earlier, the original Zionists who wanted to build the state, they're actually secular people. They don't care about the religion. And the Tunisian scholar that I mentioned, he specifically talks about conflicts. When they were building the Israeli state, there were conflicts with their own Jewish scholars on how to run the state. So the Zionists is a political movement. It's a bloodthirsty movement. They're fascist. They're but they are the ones who are in control of the Israeli state. The Jews, on the other hand, as the scholars, well, they're kind of. I mean, some people might like the analogy here, but even in Islam, we have different scholars. Some scholars are liberal, some scholars are conservative. They're mainstream conservative. So the Jews themselves, they have scholars like the Naturi Kartas. These are actually Orthodox Jews, scholars of Judaism. So they have different views, but at the end of the day, they're they approach it from a religious perspective. So we might disagree with them, and we will have disagreements with them. But to us, they're the people of the book, But the Zionists, just want to clarify the political front, the political movement that protects the Jews, I guess, in their own view of their strategy of how to protect the Jews. So I hope that's gonna. I mean, I don't have time to discuss like more about the history of it, or but just understand that the Zionists are the political movements, and the Jews are the actual scholars or the people of the Judaism faith.
Jazakallah, Mr. Jumma. So last 2 questions, guys. Abdul Wahab, can unmute. We are running out of time.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Brother Juma. Okay, you brothers talk about unification. We all know it's desirable, but it's not achievable because even at the time of Imam Mahdi, all Muslims are not going to unite under one flag. But my main question is not that. My question is that, like, what would be your suggestion for those who are in their age ranging from 15 to 25, maybe who are in their colleges, universities, and keeping in mind that there are those who are ready to sacrifice everything, their money, even their lives, for this cause, and eventually for the sake of Allah. Should they join? Should they try to find a way to join Hamas or maybe Hezbollah or something like that? And if not, then how can we distinguish among women, children, handicapped, disbelievers, and we Muslim men, like strong, healthy men? Because protest, boycotting, tweeting, funding can also be done by the weak entities. Even non-Muslims are doing that. So what we men are supposed to do, what we Muslim men are supposed to do? What's your suggestion, brother?
Okay, so that goes back to I want to comment first. I hope they never join Hezbollah because that's a Shia Hezb, and don't be fooled by the fact that Hezbollah has done nothing. This is another thing I should have probably touched on. Hezbollah literally has done nothing on the ground other than flirting with the Israelis. So I wouldn't. Maybe this is another topic that would take a long time to discuss. What is Hezbollah in Iran doing right now? They're doing nothing, absolutely nothing. So I hope nobody's fooled by Hezbollah statements and long speeches on the ground, he's doing nothing. Just like the Jordanian government, the King Abdullah, he's doing nothing. He comes up in his military uniform, talking and giving speeches, and on the ground, he's doing nothing. So, but as far again, we discussed this. Listen, the blood boils, and you want to do something. I don't see it foreseeable where you can do something that's considered actual jihad. It's not. I don't see how this is honestly feasible. If you live in Pakistan or Jordan, anywhere else, unless you're allowed, you can, unless there's an open declared front against, Zionists, then I don't see foreseeable. So that's number one. Number two, on how to work. Again, there are things that you can do within your capacity. Whether we agree with it or not, these are the things that are available right now. Going back again, you want to work for the unity of the Ummah, I would, of course, recommend that you work within a hizb or a group, they have a clear strategy on to do that. And usually the group that you want to join, they have their own instructions, their own guidelines, their own books, their own aqidah, how to work about it. I would suggest that this is probably the best thing to do for you.
Jazakallah, Mr. Jumma. Subhan, AU, can you please unmute your mic?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. Maybe you can direct us to some trustworthy sources for getting current news on things going on in Palestine, Gaza, and West Bank. Because being far away from the land, there's always confusion as to what's right and what's wrong. And I was hoping maybe you could direct to some trustworthy resources or maybe channels to follow.
Wallahi, so I get asked this question a lot where I get the news from. Main two things Telegram, but Telegram channels are all in Arabic, and then Twitter. Twitter Space is probably proving one of the best during the war. But I follow a lot of news outlets, Israelis, Western, a lot of independent journalists, which is probably one of the best sources of news are the independent journalists. But I don't have like a list. I subscribe to a lot of them, and I just keep looking at the news. Now, as far as situation in the West Bank, things are heating up in the West Bank. I mean, there are a lot of clashes in West Bank. Hamas have some existence in the West Bank, not a strong existence, but in the West Bank they're not mobilized as much as Hamas. They're not. As much as Hamas in the Gaza Strip, so resistance is weak in West Bank. It's localized. It's more of a guerrilla style. You attack and then you run. And there's also the PLO. First, you have to get past the PLO security forces, and then you can attack the Israelis. But overall, it's characterized as weak. The things in West Bank are somewhat stable. There's not as much as killing or as much as violence in the West Bank. So the resistance so far is lacking in West Bank, but things are stable, generally speaking, in West Bank.
So if you can just give a couple of names on top of your mind in order to follow on them on Twitter, someone.
Oh, so for example, there is this Iraqi reporter. His name is Sami Husseini. Let me get his name. He's one of the guys I like.
Just put down a couple of names. So at least to give brother a reference. Then I believe Twitter helps itself to find the right persons. Once you are connected with one or two, then it will naturally will support you to find the right.
Oh right, yeah.
Content.
I'm hitting send. It's not sending for some reason. I don't know why.
Just you sent the names of these Twitter accounts. I have a small question. Is Hamas Shia or Sunni or combined?
No, it's 100% Sunni. Let me kind of put it out there. You have the Salafis, especially from the Saudi Arabia part. that they always throw these accusations and things about Hamas because, again, they take help from the Shias, the Iranis, and the Hezbollah. And they always, so that sometimes you'll see them talking about them in a conflating manner, in a vague manner, that they're Shia-loving people and this and that. And it's not true. They're 100% Sunnis. They're on the mainstream Sunni ideology. But so don't listen to any of these, stuff that they
because
circulate out there.
some of our Pakistani people, and like the Shia people, they have claimed that Hamas is most of them. It's not only Salafis.
Completely false. Completely
Okay.
false.
That's a joke. That's a joke, Stefan.
Yeah.
Seriously. Anyways, I
Okay,
believe let's not
Amr, sorry.
Yeah.
I will send you on the WhatsApp, inshallah, some Twitter accounts that I follow. Okay.
Perfect.
Sure. You can send us. We will share with our brothers.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So, Abdullah bhai and Safan, can we, say?
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
That's finished. And there is a request that do you have a Twitter account? Can we follow you?
You can follow me. I don't post. I'm usually just following people. I don't post much, but yeah.
Okay, then we will follow you to follow those.
Okay, sure. No worries.
Okay.
I'll send you my account as well.
Okay.
No problem.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, brother Jumma, let me, thank you very much. Jazakallah khairan kaseera. It was really helpful to understand the point of view from a Palestinian perspective and the insightful things you have given to us, the enlightenment and particularly the way forwards. The only thing I would like to request to all of the brothers, that's the thought process, the ideology. We are at not only at the state of only this armed conflict, we are at a state of ideological conflict, we are at a state of economic conflict, political conflict. We just need to equip ourselves with the right tools. And every warfare has its own right tools, whether it's being political warfare, economical warfare, ideological warfare. We just need to equip ourselves. And unless and until we are equipped, we are very much clear and articulated in our thought process, it will not be possible for us to to fight on any front. Yes, we can be cyber warriors, but we cannot be a real-time mujahideen, or we can say we cannot do a jihad fi sabilillah. So in order to do these things, if we really need to answer the tough questions on the day of judgment, and we just need to defend ourselves, we literally have to start now. There is no tomorrow, it's only now. So with this only comment, I would really like to thank again Muhammad Jumma. It was really nice having you with us, and it was really an insightful discussion. And thank you very much, Safan, Abdullah, Yazbay, all of the team who was really working hard to manage it. They were on the back side, not on the front side, but they literally have worked very hard in order to cascade the messages towards the masses. And thank you very much, Safan, Abdullah, again. With that one, we can conclude. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
I just, in the end, I just wanted to add one question. If Mr. Jumma has time.
Well, he has left.
No, I haven't left, but
it's the first thing we can do, and we have very contradictory statements on us. Most of us who are in this room, they agree on this point, but most of us, those are not in this room, but in other circles.
Can you stop the recording first? If this question is like
no, it's for the recording. So, the first thing we can do as a human being, as a Muslim, to support Palestine or the cause of Palestine is to boycott the products, right? So, as Mr. Shafiq spoke earlier, do you have anything to speak on the boycott?
Okay, so I do believe boycott is a weapon that can be used to put pressure. However, people sometimes exaggerate the impact of such methodology to make it sound like you're liberating Al-Aqsa by boycotting. But however, there is a national movement that's existed now for like 10, 15 years called BDS, Boycott, Divest, and Sanction. BDS has shown effectiveness against the fight, the economical fight against Zionism. So I personally, so this is the first point, is that let's not exaggerate. Let's boycott, but let's not exaggerate. Now, from a fiqh perspective, go ask your scholar if you can boycott or not. What's the ruling on boycott? The scholars that I follow, most of them say that yes, it's okay. As a matter of fact, it's better for you to boycott. Now, so there's Islamic domain aspect to it. Now, the effectiveness we already discussed, that it is effective. However, it's not going to liberate. The last point I want to discuss is that there are some products you're not going to be able to boycott, and there are some products that you shouldn't be boycotting because it's being smeared by Zionists. Like, for example, some people will tell you go. There's a product here in US called California Gardens. It's actually owned by a Palestinian, and the company called California Gardens. Somebody put it on the list. It's probably Zionists put it on the list as one of these companies who support Israel. They don't. So what I'm saying is, do your research, and if it's something that you can, boycott and replace by other products, then why not? I'm all for it. Again, with a disclaimer that Islamically you're okay, your scholar says you're okay. But to conflate it and to exaggerate that it's going to liberate Aqsa, no, I don't go that far. But yeah, why not? I mean, it's like for example, McDonald's when it was first released, that they actually did in fact send meals to their soldiers in Israel. Now McDonald's is taking a strong hit, although even though we can claim that these branches are owned by Muslims in Saudi Arabia or in Kuwait or in Jordan, but the franchise, they take a fee. So when the McDonald's itself loses money in these regions, now they're gonna think twice about taking a political stand, at least. So I think it is a tool. However, sometimes a lot of people exaggerate and they pressure people, and then a lot of unnecessary arguments break out. I wouldn't get the main idea is that don't get too busy with it. Don't get focused on it. Don't make it a source of fitna or disagreement.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so gents, I believe let's.
Okay.
Yes, Jazakallah khair, Safa, Amir bhai and Jumma bhai. Thank you for the time. So it's fine, you guys.
And Jumma, one more thing, like you are continuously referring towards Shahzad, though Shahzad is there, but like nobody knows Shahzad over here.
Oh, okay. maybe. I thought
I'm not that popular, Jumma. I mean, I don't know what to assume.
You're very popular in my heart, Shahzad.
But it was good at least. It was good at least he was being named continuously, and I believe everyone must be wondering why Shahzad is being mentioned. But Jazakallah khair for everyone. Actually, Shahzad is my friend, and Shahzad is our mutual friend, mine and Jumma. So that is how I have extended towards Jumma. Thanks to Shahzad as well. He was the main source for us for this connection. So Jazakallah khair, Shahzad. It's all possible just because of you. Thank you very much. Okay, Jazakallah khair, Jumma, again, and I believe we will connect again. And if we think like that, we need to have another session, and if there is a demand or there's a request from the people, we will again request you.
Maybe from a female speaker from Palestine for our sisters. Maybe we can arrange a separate session for females.
Is that a possibility, Jumma? If you can, help us to arrange.
I have to look into it honestly.
Okay, and it's not. You're not something that we want it right now. It's if it's feasible, if it's something manageable.
It's probably feasible. So I'll have to inshallah look into it and arrange stuff.
Perfect.
Okay.
That would be great, inshallah. Okay, Jazakallah khair. And I believe let's call it off. Otherwise, they will not let you go.
No, I actually have to go visit my aunt. So.
Okay, please move on. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. Safwan, recording band kar dein. Safwan.